Is mantra just a word or more?
I mean, it's no different than, yeah.
Word or 2 words or 3 words? What you call mantra?
Well, it's a part, it's just what's going on in the now. I mean, a mantra, I guess it really doesn't matter what a mantra is in
For
this
everyone
conversation.
or special for this
Well,
or
because
that?
if it's personalized to someone, it's no different than what color is your favorite color. It's just,
As I know from Tipitaka, the Pali term is manta and the Sanskrit is mantra, but
yeah.
it means right understanding.
Okay.
But it cannot be right when there's no understanding at all. But one make believes that it can bring understanding.
Mm.
So, reciting a mantra, if from the Buddhist perspective, is actually uh, reading or reciting words of the Buddha with understanding.
Mm.
With understanding what? Understanding what appears.
As
Right.
it is. As not I am reciting mantra.
Otherwise, it becomes a ritual.
Right. So saying the alphabet.
No, nobody would associate saying the alphabet as a kind of practice, but people do take mantra reciting as something. So that's why I say that's the bigger obstacle. Singing a song is just attachment. You don't believe that it's the path to enlightenment, right?
Right. It's like, do you like salty food or do you like
Right,
yeah
right.
curry or do you like
Yeah, that's just attachment, right?
yeah.
So that's not a huge
Yeah.
problem compared to believing that the kind of practice leads you to enlightenment or something, or goodness, or because in fact, if you mistake attachment, because that's what happens when you go and sing, uh, you know, uh, you know, songs in temples, in Hindu temples, and all. That's what it is, attachment. And if you believe that it's something good you're doing, then you're completely lost. If you think it's a kind of wholesome activity, then it's completely lost because it's in fact attachment with no understanding. You know, my wife's a Sikh, and she would, try to force my children to go to the temple just to listen. She knows that they don't understand, but she just wants them to go, be exposed to the sound, and maybe something good will come out of it, right? But do you believe that can happen? What can happen when you go there with the attitude of just sitting there and listen, and doesn't matter there's understanding or not?
Because the guru, what do they call it? The
Gurudwara.
Yeah, the Guru Gala is ancient teachings that has been passed forward.
No, Gurudwara is the temple. Is the
Oh,
meaning
I
of
mean
the temple.
when they sing the Guru, the singing.
Yeah. That's right. But even then, how many people actually go to try to understand with relation to what's now? How many people actually knows that what they hear refers to their life, right? They usually go, and because the teachings is not about reality, it encourages thinking about this and that in terms of me and the world, right?
Right. So she wants to go for the children to listen because she's hoping that it will nourish them on some level. It's a
No, she
positive.
appreciates the religion.
Mhm.
She. Otherwise, she has the accumulations to, uh, you know what is wrong in the sense of like lying is wrong,
Right.
stealing is wrong, and
Right.
also she has that sense. So she wants her children to be good, uh,
Yeah.
good people. Uh, but what she doesn't understand is that the only way to being good is through understanding.
And what is enlightenment? What is enlightenment?
Not to know anything. I don't know.
Including
of that?
Well, that's what I would think, but then if everything you think is a thinking, yeah, enlightenment would mean you're enlightened to know everything. But in the context of how we were talking about things, I think it would get down to nothingness, because otherwise we're labeling and saying everything, or else it's seeing everything. I don't know.
at the moment of seeing it's there, it's nothing yet until it's gone, right? So if it's not the actual moment of experiencing the arising and falling away, there must be the idea of it's still there, like now, seeing is now. But at the moment when it arises and falls away, direct experience is nothing. So nothing is just talking about nothing, but nothing of that which no, not yet arise, nothing, and then something, and then nothing. Nothing before hearing, and then there's hearing, and then nothing. So it's right understanding that even nothing is not worthwhile taking it for I see, or I hear, or I think. Everything is just arising and falling away by conditions.
So, Chan, would it be wrong to say that it's actually nothing about something?
It's panya, which understand the sunyata or anatta, the same meaning. It just arises to be there, and then
Right.
no more.
So it's nothing because that the nature of that is
Void
to
of self,
rise and
yeah,
fall away
yeah.
immediately.
Nothing. Sound a moment ago, nothing. It's gone completely. That's the meaning.
That's why it takes a long time to develop understanding because as of now everything seems stable and lasting, right? All our experiences seem like it's solid. The seeing seems to happen all the time. The hearing, okay, doesn't seem like seeing, right? But uh, a, but actually that's not what it is. The seeing does not arise all the time. It just arises and falls away, and there's so many realities in between. Um, so if we don't hear that truth, that teaching, then it's impossible to ever know because uh, otherwise, because that's what we think. We think that we are here sitting, and there's the world out there. Who but the Buddha would have told us otherwise?
So the Buddha this looked at his reflection in the pond.
But there would be seen, right?
But some people say that's what that was it, the moment of his. Maybe
Is it
that's not
anything?
true.
Is it
Is it any different?
is it any different from seeing this? It's just a moment of seeing. We're saying that whatever it is just one experience at a time to the five senses or the mind. So whatever the Buddha was doing, it's like now. Whatever the Buddha experience is like us now, the five senses and the mind. The difference is we don't understand, but he understood. So each moment, he just understood it for what it is. And enlightenment means understanding this, all this, thoroughly.
And more.
Yeah, and more. And more in the sense that um, it has to grow to a level um, that experiences the unconditioned reality for a moment.
Yeah. So when Buddha sat at Deer Park under the Bodhi tree, he was explaining.
He was talking about now.
Yeah.
The people during that time had the accumulations to understand. I mean, to be born during the Buddha's time, to be his audience, means a lot. Means you have to have good accumulations and uh, good karma, good all this to hear, to be born. And so the people of his direct audience had the accumulations to understand what he meant. We, 2,500 years later, don't have the accumulations. So when we read the suttas, the teachings, the stories about him teaching them, it's hard to understand. We are lucky to have Achan who has studied um, the teachings and emphasizes on the one of the three baskets, which is the sutta, the Vinaya, and the Abhidhamma. Abhidhamma is the higher teachings, which actually, in the sense that it um, puts in details all these realities that we talk about now, like seeing, hearing, and helps us to understand that it's not self here who sees, because without this set of teachings and reading the suttas, we would think that, oh, there were people there who did this, did that, and think in terms of stories because they did this, or we have to do, but it's never like that. We don't have to do what they did. We just have to understand our reality now. I mean, the mainstream Buddhism, I'm sure you know that everyone teaches meditation, and they claim that that's what the Buddha wanted us to do, to go to a meditation center and concentrate on the breath or whatever they object they can they come up with, and that will lead to enlightenment, understanding, enlightenment. And they cite a particular discourse, the Satipatthana Sutta, where the Buddha talks about the understanding the different realities, and referring to monks who sit down and meditate. So they read that and think that that's what we have to do. But actually, he was talking to a group of monks, and which did not just include people who were meditating as another their own daily activity, but also the life of their life, daily lives, as in when dressing up, when eating, when walking. So that, in fact, was pointing to the fact that he didn't talk about following a certain pattern of practice. He was just trying to make us understand that whatever we're doing, there are realities arising and falling away, no matter what the activity, that need to be understood gradually. So without Ajahn Suchin, we would be lost. We would think that, oh, that's what the Buddha said. As the monks taught us, and meditation teachers, that the Buddha in that sutta was telling us to go and meditate as the monks did. He didn't. He was just talking to the audience and telling that group of monks that when you meditate, that's the reality. When you are walking, that's the reality. And, to And you probably not read much, but the fact is that most of his audience who became enlightened and were recorded as having happened that way got enlightened while listening to him. While listening to him. So hearing the teachings is the most important factor. If you don't hear, then you don't know.
Last Thursday at the university, I think I understood that the monks, like that young man that wanted to become bhikkhu, is it because, like when we were talking before about chanting, so a lot of, and there was some people around also where I live, they were going, their son was going to ordain and they were going to Tambun. So do a lot of them make merit? Tambun means to make merit. So this is like, to go and ordain to make merit, but without understanding anything. But that's what they're doing these days, isn't it? So it's totally wrong.
Can doing something with ignorance be a merit?
Well, yeah, I see what you're saying. Because if there's no knowing, if the teachings aren't being heard, then this could be doing. It's a ritualized thing or whatever you want to call it, or consumerized, or however you want to call it. I know they do the vipassana to have the silence so that it seems to be working to quell the agitated mind, and they're using that approach in society now to get the kids to listen better to the teachers, to get the people that are confined because they've done wrong things, and it's to help them focus. So there's these approaches, but maybe, like you're saying, it's a salad bar of methodologies. And if there's not a knowing, if there's ignorance that's driving that, then it's sort of what you're saying is it's kind of missing the point, maybe, is, I don't know how to say it correctly.
See, and you can, put forward that idea to anyone. Means someone who has no idea about the Buddhist teaching, and it makes sense to them.
Yeah.
Right? So it's actually speaking to something other than understanding. It's speaking to our ignorance and attachment. We all want results, so someone promises us that if we do this, this is going to happen. Why not? And of course, when we go there, we do experience certain things that are different because as you're saying, daily life is, so. Um, um, what was the word you're saying? Like people, huh? Salad bowl.
Salad bars.
No,
Market
not
out
that.
there.
Something about
Worldly
if someone feels that the life is, they have a very hectic life and they want to avoid certain experiences, they go to meditate. So of course they avoid those experiences and they feel that whatever they got is something good, right? But they don't know that what they get is an even worse enemy because you end up attached and believing that that is the way to good. I mean, otherwise, if you're a person living in the world and have no idea, you can talk about, oh yeah, drinking is bad, and beating my wife is bad, and all that. They'll agree, right? But who would say that going to a meditation center is bad? Who would know that? Especially once you've been there, you experience certain things that makes you feel good, and it's just feeling.
Well, maybe sometimes it's used as a guidance tool, like an inner GPS to make better choices than that 7-year-old that's constantly on the video game. So maybe it's a way of, hopefully, a form of self-regulation.
If it's that, it's fine. But it's
Yeah.
usually taught in the name of the Dhamma, right?
Yeah, there's a knowledge to it. Like you're saying, it's not just an ignorant pinball machine bouncing off of experiences. Yeah, there's truth to it's truth. Yeah.
I wouldn't mind if they were teaching meditation to kids, just to saying that, okay, you learn to be away from your phone and all that, to gradually develop a habit of not always going for your phone impulsively. That's fine. But if you say that that is what the Buddha taught, then you're wrong.
Yeah. Yeah, like you said. You said that was to learned monks that were receiving teachings, and that, like you said, their karmas combined, that they were there at that time and they were able to retain that, and that was a knowledge that they had from former lives or whatever, and it opened them up because that impeccable timing was that moment under the tree or wherever it was, because they were ready. But no one is ready sitting there unguided in a meditative state, because there's no, like you said, there's ignorance. I see that.
And the other thing is that you just reminded me that people also refer to the Buddha's own experience, that he was sitting down to meditate under the tree and he became enlightened. What they don't realize is that he was enlightened. He was enlightened, and before that, while he was sitting all that, he was not. Right? He became enlightened, then he taught the Dhamma. He didn't become enlightened and said, oh, do like me, sit down under the tree. He then came and taught what he came to be enlightened to.
An emphasis on that, that agitated mind. That's a lot why people sort of think they should do meditation, because they talk about this agitated mind. But it's just that very agitation that's got to be known as not self. It is just a reality that arises and falls away. So unless all of these different realities, like the agitated mind or the calm mind or seeing, hearing, sound, they're all realities that arise and fall away, and they're the very things that need to be known so that there will be eventually true calm, ridding of the defilement.
So what you're saying too is there to have the knowledge and to erase the ignorance. So society with its agitated mind at times is, or the meditating is the tail wagging the dog or the cart driving the horse. It's got to have a guidance instead of a symptom of ignorance. Well, it's like if what he was saying, that if everyone, they're saying, oh, why don't you come to the meditation course because you're going to gain so much. And then, but without the knowledge and with the ignorance, it is the same as the cart driving the horse, the cart telling the horse what to do, or the wagging tail of the dog. The dog isn't, yeah, it's random. It's a rogue thing. There's Is what I think that's what.
I think, you know, that you're absolutely right there, because as Kun Sukin alluded to before, Naruti, we haven't got the good teachers these days. And so, as you said, the tail wagging the dog, or the cart before the horse, or any such of those analogies. It's a great blessing to find a good teacher, and it's hard. And then, if you haven't got one, you don't know that. You're only just following what everybody else says to do, and everybody else has a certain idea that's wrong usually, and it's mostly the blind leading the blind. It's very the Dhamma is very subtle, and it's very, very, very subtle. And Ajahn is always like, we've talking about many different things, and I've really appreciated just listening to your ongoing considering and questioning and openness too, because Ajahn will always remind us about the present reality, you know, not the stories that are always going around, and to be open to an understanding of our misunderstanding, because as Kun Su Kin said at the beginning, we're all beginners in a way, you know, and if we have a wise friend like Ajahn who helps us who points us in the right direction, that's a wonderful thing. And to be able to consider the possibility of what she is saying, because when we consider it, there is seeing now. That's real. We don't have to think, oh, maybe that's not right, or whatever. It's a truth. That's true. Seeing is true. Hearing is true. Sound is true. That's true. And the more we can relate that, rather than all the different things like people do and think that that's going to help them, but we know that when we consider it more and more, that's just a story of these different concepts and people being led this way and that way, and sometimes going down some very, very strange paths to get to some very strange places sometimes. And the truth sometimes initially can be, it's not all that attractive. You know, it doesn't have, it doesn't sound initially all that attractive, but
it has to be that way. Dhamma is hard.
Yes,
You cannot expect more than a handful of people who will appreciate it.
Sure.
Because it goes against the tide of the stream of ignorance and craving.
It's true, but what I was going to say to that it leads on to wonderful things, and that can be seen, that it leads to wonderful things little by little. Even though in the beginning it's